everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Lost Guys. With me, as always, is the inscrutable Martin Stone and the effervescent Nolan Thunder. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Excited to be back. Excited. How about you?
I'm doing all right. You hangry?
I am hangry.
Well,
should have eaten more.
Yeah, I mean, after we wrap this, you want to grab a bite?
Sure, sounds good. Anyway, I would say that I have the appetite of a wolf which you could say flies through the air.
Flying wolves? That sounds scary.
It does sound scary, and yet it is the subject of our conversation tonight. In fact, we are going to be talking about possibly the coolest show ever made, Airwolf. Guys, I'm really excited to hear what you think about this because I loved this show when it was on. Like this was like this was my acolyte. Oh, that's a bad example. Hang on.
What?
No. This was a show that I was just every week I had to watch this, and if for nothing else but that amazing theme song.
It was good.
Like, oh man, you can't get better than that. So it's about a helicopter. It's a flying helicopter. It's a flying, armed to the teeth helicopter, which has gone rogue and which helps out. I'm not even sure how to qualify this really.
Well, it's a lifting body aircraft.
What's that?
It's a lifting body aircraft, Mach Plus helicopter.
Yes.
And it's developed by the firm.
Yes.
But
not the one that Tom Cruise is working at.
Not that firm, no. You get the feeling it's like a CIA front kind of research project thingy. And its developer massacres everybody at the test site and then runs off to Libya. And this is not that sort of mamby-pamby the way we do it today. It could be Libya, it could be this, it could be that. It's not Whatsistan. We're fighting not the Russians. No, This is Libya. They mentioned Gaddafi.
Yes.
So our heroes are pulled out of retirement reluctantly to go rescue Airwolf for the good old US of A.
But let's talk a little bit about Airwolf because it is a super amazing, just the coolest darn helicopter you will ever find. Like as Martin said, they took a helicopter and they slapped jet engines on it. And so this thing can break the sound barrier. It can do loop-de-loops, which is, pretty amazing that a helicopter, according to physics, that should be impossible, but we don't talk about that.
Who cares about physics?
It's got
crybabies anyways.
Big rail gun, like chain guns on the sides of its wings. It's got this never-ending supply of missiles. It can go into whisper mode, so that it's completely stealthy. It's bulletproof, obviously. What am I missing here, guys? It's got a full radar and sensor suite. It's got anti-missile flares. This thing is just packed to the gills. And all it really is lacking is an AI intelligence kit from Knight Rider or something.
I want to know what kind of voice this thing would have if it could talk. Who would our token celebrity guest be for this cool helicopter?
And it also makes a sound like a wolf when it flies really fast. But I interrupted Martin's synopsis. Please continue, sir.
Well, where do we want to go with that? Oh, we could talk a little more about the helicopter itself. We can talk about the plot of the pilot.
Well, let's talk about the plot of the pilot and which gives a really good, I feel, setup for the episodic show that follows afterwards.
Yeah. And as with a lot of these things, there's some retooling mid first season, some changes season 2, some dramatic changes later. But in our pilot episode, which when I was reading, I found out the pilot episode was recut into a movie for some countries.
Really? That was the version I saw.
Released to theaters, cut into a movie.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But
And if it is the cut I saw, it is very sloppily edited. I can't tell if it was a fan edit or the theatrical version, but it was weird.
Uh,
Yeah, there was
well,
some
it was
time
the
where,
80s.
like, during the not to go too deep before the end of the summary here, during the climax, there's a lot of action going on. There's a song that's added on top of it, and there's like barely any sound effects during the action scene. It looks more like a music video towards the end. It is very bizarre.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I I watched it as it's two separate episodes, and I got about the same.
Okay.
But so the the head engineer of the Airwolf project massacres all the people there to witness its unveiling to a U.S. senator, except for a couple of people. One of them is the head of firm that they call Archangel. He always wears white, and after these
He's like the
accidents,
Colonel.
and he
he's
has
like
a
the Colonel.
patch
I was
and
gonna
a
say,
really
these accidents,
crazy
he
wig.
walks with a limp and and an eye patch, and he turns to really the only person there is to turn to, Stringfellow Hawk, Captain, U.S. Army, retired, former member of firm, and the only other man to have ever flown Airwolf. And we know this from one very lengthy string of dialogue exposition. Stringfellow is an interesting character. He likes to sit on his on the lake
He's
and
off
play.
grid. He's off
Yeah,
grid.
he's off grid. He likes to sit on the lake and play the cello for eagles to come and get used to him and possibly
And
nest
cry.
beside him.
To feed bald eagles, to feed out of his hands the taste of freedom.
I gotta say that was new because I'm used to the main character, who has like a tragic, edgy backstory, like doing his emo thing where he's sitting next to a tree, like scoffing as the sun sets in the distance, or he's looking off in the distance of the cliff as like visions of his memories are in the distance. No, this is the first time I've ever seen him playing an instrument with an eagle nearby crying. That was new. Credit to Airwolf.
And thoroughly American. Anyhow, so interrupting his cello playing comes Archangel, and I can't remember the lady's name from the pilot episode. But they arrive in a helicopter, scare off the eagle. Stringfellow Hawk is upset with them, but still he invites them into the house. Gabrielle, thank you. Still, he invites them into the house because what's a kindly host to do? Because he's the main character and the love interest designate, she falls instantly in love with him and he with her. Then she admires his art collection for a little while. They all go to bed in separate within the house, but separately because this is 80s TV. And somehow in the middle of the night, she convinces him to take up the mission. So he runs off to the film set.
I thought you were going to allude to something else there, Martin.
I was not. He runs off to the film set of a Belisarius production where he meets Ernest Borgnine, playing somebody else, obviously. Santini, I think his name is.
Yep. Yeah, Santini. Of Santini Air.
That's right. And what do you got? Hawk embarrasses an actor, gets fired from the set, convinces Santini to come with him to Libya, steal a one-of-a-kind prototype helicopter, and we are off to the races, ladies and gentlemen.
And of course, unfortunately, the love interest passes away, which causes
As one must.
A grief-stricken Hawk to enact brutal, explosive vengeance on the Libyans. I mean, they did not spare the dynamite, I think, in this pilot. That's for sure.
Nope.
I will say this. At the beginning of the movie first episode, whichever way you watch it, they mention that this helicopter has 3 nuclear-tipped missiles. And he doesn't use any of them in wreaking his vengeance. So, hey, good on him for the restraint.
That is
He used about everything else in the kitchen sink, though, I'll tell you that.
He did.
Well, it just seems like an endless supply of missiles, which, frankly, I have no problem with.
It's like Voyager in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, gosh, just to derail this for a second, that is, to me, the greatest sin of that TV series. The fact that the ship didn't show up at the end of the series completely battered and bruised. They didn't run out of photon torpedoes within the first year. Like that, the hulls weren't all ripped up and wrecked. Like, I mean, anyway, that
The
could
only
be
thing
maybe-
battered and bruised by damn Voyager was the audience.
right. But in comparison, we didn't know how lucky we had it. I will put it at that. But back to the Airwolf. So basically, yeah, essentially the setup for the ongoing TV series is that Stringfellow Hawk and Santini make off with Airwolf. They hide it in, I'd like to say,
Is it like the high desert or something?
I don't know. For some reason,
Oh,
Utah is coming to
volcano.
mind. I don't know why.
I think it's a dormant volcano they hide it in, if I remember.
It's a dormant volcano. And so whenever Archangel needs an off-the-books op to happen in the pursuit of truth, justice, and the American way, he approaches Stringfellow and Santini, and they go take off an Airwolf to do what's got to be done.
And it's lucky that they never send anybody after him with a pair of binoculars just to track where the things ends up.
Yeah, and it's lucky that they're able to do regular maintenance on a top secret, super high tech helicopter inside of an abandoned volcano. Just two dudes.
It's good. It self repairs just as long as he calls every 24 hours. It's all safe. No questions asked. It's all fine.
What is it with us and TV shows where the main character is on the edge of the law, has stolen a sophisticated machine, and is living off the grid? Is that
there's starting to be a bit of a recurring theme here. I was going to suggest we actually do Knight Rider too, but that might be a bit too on the nose.
I swear, if we see one of these shows where we see a bunch of fast food mascots piloting these things, I'm done. I'm done.
So what did you guys think of it? Like, had you seen Airwolf before, or is this sort of a first for both of you?
I watched it on reruns on USA back in the day.
Nice.
I had never even heard of this series prior to now, and it was definitely a ride. I mean, it was very action-packed. It was very sexy. It was dramatic. It was very movie. But I do gotta say, there's fun to be had with it. I think it's got a lot of the tropes of that era, but I think it does work in some cool ways. It's a lot of dumb fun, but it was worth the watch. I feel like I think there's a lot of things I would be curious to see where it goes after the pilot, because I don't think it hooked me as much as some of our other vehicle shows we've had, like Viper, where I'm really curious to where it will go.
Right.
This one, I feel like it leaves after the end of this pilot, it leaves a little less of like, ooh, where can we go from here? As opposed to kind of want to see the main character, finally, get that love, like find his brother. Like, there's definitely a plot here. I don't know. I think for me, maybe it could have been from the cut I saw, which was, like I said, it could have been a fan edit. It was a little bit choppy in a few spots, I feel like, with some of its pacing and engagement. And the main character honestly didn't hook me as much because of how like quiet and distant he was. Like, that was probably my biggest gripe. It might just be a preference type thing, because I don't think he was a bad character, but I feel like I had a little bit of a harder time. I understand his viewpoint, and I definitely felt very emotional about this show towards the end of it, with like the tragedy he's gone through. But I guess I would have liked a little bit more of a engagement of being able to connect, but maybe the character just wasn't meant to connect with me in that way, if that makes sense.
I think he is supposed to. This is a pretty standard Donald Belisario TV show. Military veterans who have a dark past. You got NCIS, you got Magnum PI, this Tales of the Golden Monkey. It's always military vets. Usually somebody has a birthday like August 8th, because I think that's Belisario's birthday or something like that. But this suffers because Jan Michael Vincent, the guy who plays Stringfellow Hawk, is not as dynamic and charming as, say, Tom Selleck, as
David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
But who is charming and charismatic like David Hasselhoff? Maybe the car?
Valid.
But Yeah, you know what, Nolan? That's a really fair point. And I do have to say, I probably should have warned you guys going into this that the pilot is its own beast. I think only watching the pilot, it won't kind of rope you in. It's after going like one or two or three episodes into the regular first season that I think, at least for me, that it really kind of pulled me in. Like, and of course, the thing that I loved the most, obviously, was the big payoff where 45 minutes of some sort of bad guy doing some bad stuff, and then Airwolf kind of just comes out and just annihilates everything. I guess it was a little bit of catharsis or something. I'm not sure, but whatever
I
it was,
understand, though.
it got me hooked.
I understand though, because like I really see why you really like this show, because like I feel like it's these kind of tropes. Like I connect this a bit when we were covering not in this show, but we were covering Arcane the other day. There was a lot of like hooks in there to where I could tell like, oh my gosh, this was completely written for me. And it's like if you feel hype with these kind of characters, you're going to be on cloud nine the whole show. But if it misses in that sense, you're going to be kind of like, yeah, it was cool, but I'm kind of wishing for a little more. I can definitely see where the hooks for you in this show is. And I got to admit, that helicopter, and since I'm going to censor myself here, is freaking cool. Like, that is honestly one of the neatest movie helicopters I've ever seen in my life. Like, I think they excelled at what they were trying to do with when it came to the style of giving an impression of what this helicopter could be as a force of nature, if you will.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Blue Thunder?
Well,
No.
Came out the year before. Another movie, or this is a movie. It's about another helicopter. Super. Yeah, there we go. The top.
piloted by the captain of the Sequest, I may add.
Yep.
Wait, really?
And I believe he
Yes.
also was from. Was it Sorcerer? Is that the name of the movie?
Yeah.
Hangry.
Yes.
Does the captain from Sequest, does he talk to the helicopter?
No. He just goes more on a spree of vengeance. So yeah, we're
Yeah, so
Martin
the
is
captain
going
of
with,
the Sequest goes and fights the guy who kills Captain Kirk in Generations. That's the plot of Blue Thunder. Yeah.
the guy from
Okay, now I really. All right, guys. Next week we're doing Blue Thunder.
Well, and another funny thing, I thought Archangel was Roy Scheider. It's Alex Cord.
Yeah.
If you watch older movies, you'll recognize her for a couple of things. But yeah, when I was watching as a kid, I thought it was Roy Scheider.
Yeah, but
You just got me thinking of
the voices are
Sequest.
so much more distinctive. Like Blue String, how are you? Like it's just this weird, almost I don't know, comedic effect to it. But going back to Blue Thunder, as Martin was alluding to, this was an era where they decided to make TV shows based on any type of self-propelled vehicle you can think of, right? Like
Unicycle.
So Blue Thunder. Yeah, I know. Blue Thunder came out. It was basically a military spec op, rogue helicopter.
Although I think Blue Thunder was like an LAPD project or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And so people really kind of glommed onto that, and then I guess that's what inspired Airwolf. And many a great discussion was had in my youth where we would discuss who would win in a fight, Blue Thunder or Airwolf. That was always fun. But then you had shows like Knight Rider with a high-tech Trans Am. You had
Viper.
Well, Viper came later, and so did this other TV show with Hulk Hogan and a morphing superboat. And I know I sound like I'm insane right now, but I think it was like Thunder in Paradise. That was the name of it. It was
Thunder in Paradise. It also starred Chris Lemmon, who has a famous father.
Jack.
Jack Lemmon.
And then
okay, I kind of want to see this show now too.
There was Street Hawk.
I can make that happen, Nolan.
Yeah, we should
Please
do that. Street Hawk was I
forgot about Street Hawk.
What's that?
I forgot about Street Hawk.
Yeah. So it was a motorcycle, which was like a super souped up, I guess, high tech combat motorcycle. And so you had all of these things, right?
Here's a question.
Yeah.
That motorcycle on a scale of like 1 is a normal motorcycle, 10 is freaking Power Rangers Super Sentai motorcycle. Where did it land in that gauge? I haven't seen it yet.
11.
11. Yeah,
God.
exactly. Here, hang on. Let me see if I can find a photo and throw it up. But here
Prepare yourselves, viewers. You're in for a ride. Right.
All right.
Anyways.
So I mean, I always, and I still to this day want a shared universe where you had Knight Rider, Airwolf, Street Hawk, whatever else have you, all kind of coexisting and teaming all up in one big 80s bro explosion.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here's the thing: is these shows actually could really work with that. Because the nice thing with these shows is, I correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you guys are a lot more educated in them than me. I feel like since, unlike say like a superhero movie or like a sci-fi movie, there's a lot less, world domination stakes at it. The planet might blow up or something like that. And these, it's a lot more condensed, a lot more personal. Stop the evil tyranny later, get the girl, stop the mafia, whatever. So I feel like these actually could connect very well. And if you could see them as doing kind of like a Avengers group together, that would be kind of amazing.
Well, in this one, Airwolf is kind of the odd man out because most of these other shows are like they're like remakes of westerns. It's the lone rider on a horse kind of thing, and with Airwolf, there's kind of a more of a international espionage element to at least the first season. Seasons 2 and 3 get lighter, less moody. And I think they stay domestic most of the time after season 1.
I see you refusing to speak about season 4, Martin.
There was a 4th season?
Yeah, Dick Van Dyke's son stars in season 4.
Before I talk about that, this is Thunder in Paradise here. The Hulkamaniac. That's the high-tech speedboat in the background there.
Welcome, brothers.
Yeah. I think I have to revisit this actually. But
I can make that happen too.
Okay. But for
need to get Marvin and Kevin for that one.
Airwolf, as Martin was pointing out, was for 3 seasons a pretty
high budget,
a high budget American TV show. And so there's Airwolf fighting its helicopter nemesis Red Wolf, which was identical except that it shot a laser from its red nose. So
Knight Rider also had nemesis.
Yes, it had Car instead of Kit, which was voiced by Optimus Prime, by the way, which makes it instantly super cooler.
All the evil helicopter things they could have done, they chose that.
They chose an evil helicopter, yeah. So anyway, the first 3 seasons were highly funded and they were filmed in America, and they actually, had a pretty decent budget. And then it kind of changed. The Canadians got a hold of it, and on behalf of my entire country, I apologize profusely for that, because at the time on cable TV, there was something called syndication. You needed to reach a certain number of episodes in the can, which I think was 55, Martin, or correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I know they're always aiming for 100.
Yeah, and so once you got to that point, you would be able to then shop your show to various networks, and as basically like a 5-disc DVD collector set, which they would be able to then buy and then air repeatedly at like 2 a.m. in the morning or what have you in what they called syndication. And so in order to get to that threshold, Airwolf did everything. The people behind Airwolf did everything they could to make some new TV shows with as little money spent as possible, I think is the charitable way of putting it.
And since they had already sold, I think it's a Bell 222 to like to Germany, and it was being used to make as a ambulance,
a medical helicopter,
medical
rescue helicopter.
Since they already sold it, they just reused the old footage.
Oh no, stock footage? Are you serious?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they had the mock-up, or at least they made a new mock-up of the cabin on the inside, so for dialogue and pickup shots and stuff like that.
But it was more egregious than that, because you know how how do I put this? Like in older Star Trek TV shows, they would always have like certain FX shots. And after you watch them long enough, you kind of see, okay, I've seen the Enterprise fly by me at that angle maybe 50 times already, right? And so that's what they did with season 4.
Sometimes in the reused footage, you'll notice like in the corner, you'll see that they zoomed in on the footage, and you can see like a little bit of like a Romulan ship because they just reused the fight scene. It's supposed to be against a Klingon ship or something.
Right.
Well, yeah, but how often did they reuse that shot from Undiscovered Country of the bird of prey blowing up?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So season 4 was a complete derail from the show. They got rid of all the main characters. The guy in the middle there was
Barry Van Dyke.
St. John Hawk's Stringfellow Hawk's brother that I guess he found. And then they had a new crew, which at least filled up the entire ship. Like that was something that always bugged me when I was growing up. I was like, man, they got the pilot, and then they've got Ernest Borgnine in the back working the computer and stuff, but they didn't have the co-pilot.
Of course, they kill him off after season 3.
Right. And so I never felt that they had.
He's old. He dies. His niece takes over the company.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's kind of cute.
No, Ernest Borgnine did live on longer.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. That's what I figured that was what it was. Okay.
No, the production company didn't kill Ernest Borgnine. I hope the audience knows I'm not alleging that.
But so basically, they essentially they filled up Airwolf. They had a complete crew complement, and so at least that was the one positive thing I could say about season 4, because again, as Martin said, they had sold off the actual Airwolf helicopter, so they had nothing. They made up a mock-up, which couldn't fly. Here, hang on, I'm going to throw that up in a second. And the VFX shots, I remember, like when I heard that season 4 was coming back, I was excited. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I like everything was sort of, everything was was pointing up like Airwolf. It was like, hooray. But in a way, it was kind of foreshadowing for a lot of the things that happened with the franchises that we love. Because as you started watching it, you kind of thought, well, wait a minute, something's wrong here. This isn't good. And
is this a set from Star Trek in the 60s?
I am not joking, Nolan. Like some of the VFX shots, and gosh, I should have like found some of these before we did our show. It would be like a stock, how do I put this? Like a stock footage of some natural scene, like a canyon or like a mountain wall or something. And you would literally see like a 2-dimensional cutout of Airwolf coming down on screen. Like you could almost imagine like someone was holding like a little picture, like a picture of Airwolf or like a model with like a stick, right? And like flying it in front of the camera. Like that was the level of VFX that they had for the season 4. It was awful.
Was it better or worse than like 2008 fan films of media where they have like the PNG image just kind of floating across the thing and it's not like hovering at all?
It was literally on par with that. I'm gonna see if I can find something. It was brutal.
Well, I do want to inject here. I don't think you should feel too bad about Canada giving us season.
It's hilarious in its media.
Yeah, Canada gave us season 4 of this. But they also gave us Captain Power. So, there's that.
Yes. And we are definitely going to have to do a show on that because Captain Power was amazing.
Captain Power?
Soldier of the future, my friend. Soldier of the future.
Soldier of the future. Hang on a second. So, I'm going to see if I can find one of... I'm going to see if I can find something that will.
I feel sick in the stomach just thinking about the amount of stock footage it probably is because I hate reused shots and so many things when they're out of place. If it's used practically, I like
talk amongst yourselves.
You see, now you've got a distaste for stock footage. The thing that bugs me about Belisario Productions is how often they use dialogue just as an info dump.
Oh, exposition.
Yeah. NCIS is one of the worst shows for that. It's handled better in Magnum PI, and I think maybe because the cast knew how to handle it better. But the pilot episode of Blue Thunder is just so thick with, let me give you all of Stringfellow Hawk's backstory, all the people he's known that died, all this, all that, all the time.
Especially like Ernest's scenes in the start too. Like most of the time he's talking to him, it's just, oh, this happened with your mother and your father, and there's barely any time aside from some jokes in there. Like,
yeah, but I do think Borgnine handles it better than Jan Michael Vincent.
Oh yeah, definitely. I
Guy's
will,
an old pro.
Yeah, no, like he's definitely a much more seasoned and honestly better actor. No offense to him, but like the acting in some of the acting in the first episode was good. Some of it I think was a little weak in some spots, but I'm kind of terrified at the prospects of like what happened afterwards. Well, here's the question then for you while he's grabbing that. Seasons like 2 and 3, after the pilot, do you think they're as strong as the first season?
It depends on what you want. Probably not as strong, but like I said, they're lighter in tone. I think they're probably more family friendly. We didn't really touch on this because I sort of skipped over it. But if you in the audience go back and watch the pilot episode or the first two, which the pilot was recut into, there's some stuff they're getting away with in a network TV show from the 80s that you're just not going to see today, like Dancing Girls and things like that. You're not going to see that on network TV anymore.
I noticed that like it was definitely
extended periods of time.
It was definitely adult aimed entertainment. Like, notice they spend a lot of time focusing on like the kissing scenes and all that. Like, they definitely knew it was an appeal that they wanted to really cash in on at the start there. And it's not something that's common and a lot of, well, there's aspects, but the landscape has changed a lot and it might be changing again, but that's a whole other can of worms in itself.
Right. But Hangry wouldn't know what time it aired in the United States because he just wouldn't know.
I wouldn't, and unfortunately, my Google foo has failed me because I wasn't able to find anything that I could throw up. But I'll keep looking. An audience, if you guys have any suggestions.
I think this is a family hour show. It may be a 9 o'clock show, but I want to say it's in that prime time. I don't think it's an 11 o'clock show like, say, NYPD Blue would be a few years later that really pushed the envelope on those things.
No, I recall this coming on like either 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Like it was definitely not 9. Mm-hmm. So it was a family sort of show, and it really kind of baffled me because so many so many kids were into this, right? And there was such a lack of Airwolf merchandise. Like they really lost a great opportunity to be able to sort of capitalize on this. And even today, sorry, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say Airwolf made those boys men, but no. Besides that, I was actually gonna ask, was there any merchandise at all for the show? Because towards the end there, I was thinking, like, especially when he's having his vengeance mode towards the end, I'm like, I could see like a play set of like him with the, with one of the guns and like the helicopter. Like, was there any sort of toy made for this show?
So there that's actually a bit of a twisted and sordid story, which I'll get into in just a moment. But back in the 80s, not really. Like, I mean, they had, I think, Hot Wheels size models, and then Japan put out a couple of toys of it as well, because the Japanese really ended up loving it.
Of course, because Japan gets all the cool stuff.
But a few years back, there was an entrepreneurial fellow who made his own 3D print of Airwolf, which was scaled to fit with like G.I. Joe action figures. And I mean, that was like the dream, right? Being able to have Airwolf interacting with your G.I. Joes. I mean, come on. And so he crowdfunded it.
I just think you're going to use like Sergeant Slaughter to replace Ernest Borgnine.
Exactly. And so he crowdfunded it, and it was like he ended up making a lot of money, but sadly he kind of things kind of fell apart, and he ultimately sort of flaked on it, and so cost a whole whack of
Ooh.
people a bunch of money. This photo up here is the prototype that had been on the Kickstarter, and it never sort of came to pass, and it's really unfortunate because I think just from the success that he received from the funding request, there is a market for this. Like, there are a lot of people who remember it, and those who watched it
We
are
need
like,
to dig out the people that worked on this show, see if they have this old passion for the show just to make Airwolf fly one more time. Like, bring it out of the hangar. Let's do it.
well, no. So the actual helicopter itself, as Martin said, was a modified Bell, and the production company bought it. They added sort of gizmos and doodads to it and whatnot. And then after the third season, again, they sold it to this German company who pulled off all those things, and this turned it into a rescue helicopter, and it actually functioned as a regular helicopter until it crashed. So
What?
yeah. So that was a tragic story of Airwolf. But I'm surprised no one's ever bought a Bell helicopter and just like assembled their own real life Airwolf. Like it,
Took it to air shows and stuff.
yeah. Like, I mean, you see all these people like driving around with Knight Rider cars and DeLoreans.
I'm pretty
and,
sure I saw at least a replica in a aerospace museum in like Sevierville, Tennessee.
Really?
Really? Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
think so.
Well,
Can we actually do these recreations and finally have that? We could make our own crossover of Airwolf and Blue Thunder.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing that I'm kind of surprised by is the fact that this IP has lain dormant, because when it was on, it was a big hit. It was hang on, let me see what Wikipedia has to say here, because they do talk about it. I mean, it lasted 4 seasons, and it had 80 episodes when you include the Canadian ones. And I mean, what do they say about it? Did well on home media. They released the DVDs not too long ago, and then they did a complete series DVD, which they released on 2016. They've released oh wow, they've released Blu-rays on it as well. I'll have to go track those down.
I
So
think you can watch it on Roku channel if you're interested in that.
it's possible.
I
So
tried to find it. I don't think it's on there anymore.
I just watched it a few days ago.
oh,
Maybe
What
it's a
did I
regional
do?
thing.
so yeah, like it has done well, and the theme, which is pretty iconic, still lives on to this day. So you would think that this would be something that modern Hollywood, with all of its sensibilities, would have sort of glommed onto and decided to reboot and refresh. But I guess in a way, I'm a bit grateful that they did not, because we know how a lot of these reboots would have gone. And
You
here's
didn't want to see a strong, independent helicopter that don't need no man.
yeah, seriously. But the guy who did the symbol for Airwolf and some of the designs, Andrew Probert, was also the guy who designed the Enterprise and the
Really?
Enterprise D. Yeah. So there is a bit of a connection there. All that to be said, it's a cool show, and there's something about that specific helicopter and the way that they were able to add just enough um, flair, I guess would be the best way to put it, to not overwhelm it, but to give it a very iconic silhouette and a very iconic look. Because in the comic books, in the comic book world, they have done a couple of Airwolf series, and the artists designed these weird stealth helicopters that just look terrible. Like I don't know what it was about the Bell, or like they just it was a recipe that came out just right, I feel, for this helicopter. And that might be part of why it is still, sort of lasted to this day, because I know Nolan, you didn't really know about it. Um,
Yeah, my bad.
but you know what? I think I would still be interested to see a refresh and a reboot, provided it's not handled by Disney. We'll put it that way.
Can I present a question to the panel?
Sure.
So, especially, this would be a core thing to know if they ever did decide to bring it back from the grave and build another one after that last one crashed. What do you think was the formula that, like, what do you think was the big reason the show lasted as long as it did? Do you think it was the action, the girls, the acting, mixing everything together, just the coolness of the helicopter? Like, what do you think it was that helped this show thread the needle so much when it did?
That's a good question because it actually was up against the TV version of Blue Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
They premiered within a couple of weeks of each other.
Oh wow.
ABC canceled Blue Thunder in like 12 episodes, 11 episodes, something like that. It had Dana Carvey before he was on SNL. But Blue Thunder outlasted it. I think maybe it worked better for TV. I've complained about Belisario Productions and how wordy they are, but it's well structured for television. And maybe that was its secret to success, where the Blue Thunder TV show wasn't as successful.
Must have paid off. Like, that's a valid point, because, like, especially with seeing all those effects, especially in like the pilot, those explosions can't be cheap. So it must have been doing something right.
I think a lot of it was the helicopter. I think, I recall tuning into that, not so much interested in the drama of the TV show, but just to see that helicopter flying around, blowing things up. So that's kind of where my I guess more base sensibilities go.
It is a little weird for a setup. Okay, so like we've talked about the other shows, like Knight Rider,
Yeah,
and Street Hawk, but with those, the protagonist can be doing something, and then the bad guy leaves, and you just jump right in the car and you take off. With Blue Thunder, with Airwolf, there's a whole pre-flight check sequence you got to go through.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no like we're gonna go get this guy right now kind of thing. It's
like we got to drive out to this abandoned volcano in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
we got to go do the pre-flight check. But that whole pre-flight check thing was part of the coolness of it, right? When they turn it on, it's like and like the rotors start going, and like the graphics pop up on the screens, and you're like, all right,
yeah,
it's time to wolf out, like.
And everybody does like to hear the sounds of those toggle switches.
Yeah, exactly.
And I gotta say, I haven't had my trademark geek out moment in this episode yet. I gotta say, I freaking love the outfits, like the helmets and stuff like that. They look like a RoboCop Power Rangers. It looks like
those are pretty rad. Like this feels almost prototypical Power Rangers in a way.
I can see that.
It reminds me of
But doesn't Super Sentai predate it?
Oh yeah, of course. But
okay.
I mean for the like prototypical in the sense that like for the American market.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes much sense, actually. Yeah,
it paved the way.
It paved the way. There we go. Thank you.
It walked so it could run.
It walked so that the Power Rangers could run.
Airwolf flew so the Power Rangers could drive.
Exactly.
Shift into turbo.
Oh man. Well, guys, any final thoughts on Airwolf before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good.
Really?
No, I'm teasing you. No,
I always fall for that. Jeez.
I say give it a watch. I am sort of a sucker for the jingoistic 80s moody action kind of stuff. So I had a good time.
Nice.
And I got to rediscover something I hadn't forgot about as a kid, but I hadn't seen in years.
There we go.
To give an honest review, I'm a simple man in some ways. You give me a few hotties and you get me practical effects and explosions and a cool soundtrack to boot. I'm not gonna be mad at the end of it. I don't think it grabbed my heart or anything like that. It's a show I can definitely appreciate it for, and I think as far as my helicopter tier list, I think this one would be at the top, because I think what's gonna happen in my normal life now is I'm gonna see helicopters and like stock footage and be like, yeah, not as cool as Airwolf. Yeah, not as cool as Airwolf. So this thing will now forever be a part of my life, for better, for worse. But I think it's for better.
And that reaction to seeing other helicopters is exactly the right one that you should have. They are not as cool as Airwolf. They will never be as cool as Airwolf. In fact, I would go so far as to say that Airwolf is the Chuck Norris of helicopters. Nothing can surpass it.
Oh, and folks, despite the insistence on 80s television shows that helicopters cannot go upside down. They can. It is possible. But it's always a plot point in these old helicopter movies and TV shows. Helicopters can't go upside down. Well, this one can.
Yep. As long as it has jet engines attached to it. All right.
I
And
don't know what
Reed,
the first helicopter that ever went upside down was. That'll be my research after this video.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm sure helicopters can go upside down, but whether they can recover from going upside down is the other question.
What was the first one that did it well without crashing is my question.
That's a good question.
That I do not know. But what I do know is that we are out of here. So guys, if you enjoyed this episode of The Lost Guys, let us know. Give us your comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. We are always looking for new media to unearth and to explore and to dissect and pick apart. So suggestions are welcome. Let us know your thoughts. Give us your questions. Are you an Airwolf fan? What are your best memories of the show? What are your worst memories? Who do you think would win in a fight, Airwolf or Kit from Knight Rider? We want to hear it. Let us know. And on that note, we will see you next time, as it is time for us to get lost.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of The Lost Guys here on That Pod Place. Be sure to subscribe for more content like it. And you can become a member at That Park Place here on YouTube to see more of The Lost Guys every Friday as soon as the guys record an episode. Let us know your thoughts on this intriguing topic in the comments down below. Please comment, like, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to That Park Place Podcasts Online, your source for exclusive content and highlights from WDW Pro, The Pro Show, and That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.